Hello everyone, my name is Dave Partner. Welcome to this 11th tutorial on Ionic. And remember in the past tutorial, we created a login form. We created a couple of pages and I put you through page navigation in Ionic2. And now at this point, you will really be wanting to know how does this form get to work? How does the back end, the user registration, the email confirmation, the password reset, all those back end user authentication processes, how do they run? How do you get it to work? Okay, it's very important to know that. But before then, I want to take out one or two things in the way. The way we are approaching this tutorial is in such a way that you will really understand this. We don't want to keep things in the road. You understand? Before the our back end will be handled by Firebase, okay? But before then, I want to put you through one or two things about services in Ionic2, which is very important. But before the services, don't forget to visit my channel on YouTube and pan to the right and subscribe if you've not subscribed. And of course, I'm on GitHub. You can always visit github.com/DaveOzalo and click on the follow button here. I have the repo for this, the codes for this tutorial are online. So you visit github.com/DaveOzalo, then you check out Fireblogger. Okay, Fireblogger, and you can always gain access to all the codes we've used. Alright, so see you right here. Let me just explain something about providers in Ionic services. So here we have the way your Ionic app currently runs is that you have an HTML page, then you have a TypeScript page, then you have another HTML page, then you have a corresponding TypeScript page, you have an HTML page, then a corresponding TypeScript page. So what do we call these guys? Let's just give them a name. Maybe this is your home page, home.typescript. This is your home.html. Alright, and let's just say that this is let's just lawyers, assuming we are building a legal app. Then we have lawyers.html. What if we have like users, like general users.typescript? Then we have users.html, users.html. And of course, to generate this in Ionic, you just run a command called Ionic G page. Then you give the name of the page. So in this case now, we'll just put users. So you just enter page name. In this case, if you want to generate users, you just type Ionic G page users. Then hit enter on your command line, then it will generate these two files for you. And of course, there is a third one for each of them called the users.scss. That's the CSS files, the SAS files for each of them. So each of them will have lawyers.scss file too. So, but they aren't important. That's why home.scss. Alright, so we have three files in each page. Now, where does the providers come in? So let's say you always make requests to your database to retrieve a certain number of users. Maybe on the users page, maybe in your app, lawyers are also users, but then they are users that are lawyers. You understand? You have everybody is a user on your app. Then some users are lawyers, some users are doctors, and so on. You understand? Maybe you always make a call in your app where you retrieve list of users or list of users that are lawyers, or list of users that are doctors, you don't need to rewrite the code all the time. That's where things like providers come in. So in provider, you have a file that sits on top sort of all these guys, and you give your provider a name. Let's just call it user service. Okay, so we'll create another file and call it user service. It's a service provider. What it does is we come here and write all the custom codes that we'll be needing. It's just like another layer of abstraction where we write all the custom codes. Okay, we create a function that retrieves list of users. Then here, when we call the function, we can create a function here and call it users. List of users. List users. And what this function does is generate list of users according to whatever parameter that is passed in here. So if we want to generate list of users here, we can just call user service dot list users. Oh, well, let me just put it here. So right here in our user service TypeScript, we can just say user service dot list users. It will just go to this user service and fetch the users. Then here we can pass the command. We can say only users, or we can say here user service dot list users / lawyer. We can just say something like this here. User service dot list users lawyers. Lawyers. Okay, and from our lawyers TypeScript file, we can call this function and pass in lawyers. It will go here and fetch the lawyers for us. So we don't need to rewrite the code that fetches the users. Hope you understand the concept now. And in Ionic, this is what your users see, which is the front end, the HTML stuff. And your CSS file makes it beautiful. You know what CSS is. Then you have your TypeScript file, which is like the back end. Then you have your services or your providers, which is like the back end of the back end. You can have several providers, of course, several providers doing several things. And of course, you can always call them from any of this. Any guy can call any provider. Hope you get the idea. So, So that being settled, can we now go and see if we can write some codes? So to create a provider, just the way you create pages, you say Ionic G provider, the name of the provider. In this case, let's just say user service. User service. Since we just use this as an example, I'll hit enter. It will create a user service provider for me. So in this user service, we use it to handle things like list of users, user registration, user login, and user whatever. Okay, so now it has created it and it has told us where it created it in app folder providers. So let's see. So right there in our app folder, we have providers. As you can see, I'm just following it, providers, and then we have user service folder. Then this is the TypeScript file we're looking for, so I'll start it up. And here is what it created. It imported injectables and HTTP and stuff like that. So before we proceed, let's just end this tutorial here since we are at the end of the time, and we'll continue in the next tutorial. But this is just how to create a provider. In subsequent tutorials, we'll just import the provider and continue. So thank you very much. See you in the next video.